Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Marcin Matyja. I'm a principal at Boston Consulting Group BCG. I work for financial institutions and for fintechs, and what is the closest to my heart is the cycle of innovation, so customer insights, use cases, and driving the adoption. I'm very happy to be moderating this panel, and today the topic of our panel is open finance, open possibilities, redefining financial innovation and inclusion. And I'm delighted to have such a forum. We have 4 panelists, so I am joined today by Pramod, by Vivien, Abdulla, and Vlad. So maybe without further ado, let me outline the plan for the next 40 minutes. We'll start with meeting our speakers a bit better. So after that fun round of a warm-up question, let's do a round table, and we'll cover 3 topics. How to build a good open finance ecosystem, what does it look like? Then the second round, how we can solve the inclusion problem, and then finally we would like to hear some advice, some lessons learned on what are the challenges and what are the pitfalls to avoid. So maybe let me start with you, Pramod. So you're transforming the way financial institutions access technology. Out of your experience, your Indian experience, your global experience, what are your favorite use cases and what is really making the difference?
Thank you, and it's an absolute pleasure to be speaking to all of you today. You know, I'm actually representing 2 parts. There's a business that we have here, traditional business around enabling banks to help them digitize and automate their customer payments. But we also have a mothership in India. We are a Bangalore-based AI machine learning technology company, and more importantly, we are also one of the largest account aggregators in India, and it is perhaps that experience that I want to talk to, where we enable and we work with some of the largest banks in helping them drive their open finance digital banking journeys. Now, when it comes to open banking, I guess for a market like UAE, which is embracing the open banking, its baby steps now, the biggest possibility is around whether you're looking at digital compliance with open banking, or are you looking at open banking as an opportunity that will completely transform the way banks will build their customers. And I think it is in that we have had experiences in India that indicate that opportunities around open finance start out very, very slow. There's a bit of confusion around what kind of models will make that transformation. And over a period of time, we've seen, and in India, I think the open finance journey has been about 5 years in the making. And what started out as a very, very clunky journey initially has transformed into something that is slowly scaled up with millions of transactions happening. And our view is that UAE will go through something very similar. And what are the typical journeys that we have seen open finance transform? I think it's all in the domain of customer onboarding, verification, loan origination, and early warning systems around loans, reducing the acquisition costs associated with customer onboarding, nudges around product positioning and cross-sell. There's an entire agenda around wealth management and robo-advisory using the benefit of open finance. I think there's a whole host of those capabilities that we would want to talk about, but perhaps in the context of today's conversation, I guess the point that I would want to leave here is that we should be looking at open finance as a not what we can do in the context of a 3 or a 1 year, 3 months or a 1 year journey, but think about it in the context of a 3-year roadmap. It can be truly transformational, and it is in that context that we could perhaps add value with banks that we are supporting. So I guess the core point that I would want is that at the end of the day, the customer journeys that we would be supporting, Perfios, is something that I've been perhaps talking about.
Thank you, Pramod, for your perspective. Now, maybe off to Vivien. Financial inclusion, democratization of access to finance. Where I hear these two words, automatically the first thought that I'm getting is the world of digital assets that you are representing today. So why don't you tell us a bit more about how at BingX you are solving this financial inclusion challenge?
Well, yes, BingX is a crypto exchange. That is initially the problem we're trying to solve is to provide a seamless access to the users from Web2 industry or the people who want to trade crypto assets. So this is our initial motivation why we start this business. But I think as the industry evolves, actually we face different challenges at different stages. For example, at the beginning, is that how we educate our users to tell them what is crypto assets, how you treat it, right? So at that time is actually when we start to build a product called copy trading. It's something quite similar as what eToro provides to those equity traders, as a community that people share ideas to show their trades. It's kind of to implement the education process. But at this moment, we're talking more about financial inclusion and how we democratization, this kind of topic. And now we face a stage that we're talking about the real RWA, real world assets, how we trade equity or fixed income related assets in crypto, using crypto asset, using stable coins. But one thing we find it's very interesting in current market is that as the Trump issued Trump token and other very big companies, listed companies, they start to build their crypto treasuries. So crypto asset start to become moving from a niche asset to a mainstream assets. So we see a lot of opportunity here. The biggest opportunity is that it's a time for crypto industry that to really incubate and really help to develop the solution that open finance solution as a fundamental layer, as a technology layer to build and connect needs from traditional financial industry to more open solution digital assets like blockchain technology. But the biggest challenge in all of this become how we regulate this industry, how we regulate it can grow as healthily and regulator can manage the risk, the overall system risk. And on the other side, how we help the technology to find its market, right? To connect to the, for example, the online shopping, travel, and every different use case in real life. That is the key challenges. And from BingX perspective, since we are providing the trading tools, so one thing we provide the education to tell our user how can you trade easily on our platform, and secondly to try our best to connect the ecosystem. For example, we partner with the traditional financial system, companies, institutions, market makers and users to help them to leverage their wisdom to find the real mass adoption cases. And on our platform, we're trying to make it scalable and scale up.
Thank you for that. Abdulla, representing one of the largest banks in the region, what's your view on how does open finance change the world of banks locally, and what structural pain points is it going to solve?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Marcin. So I'll probably talk about three things that I think open finance can help with. The first is around breaking data silos. So we live in a digital world, and yet different aspects of our lives are at different stages of digitization. On the one hand, AI is helping me plan my next holiday. On the other hand, I'm still writing paper checks for my rent. So I think even within the industry, we face these kinds of challenges a lot of the time. So if we are able to break down some of these silos with open ecosystems, I think that could be a good outcome for society at large, but also for specific journeys within our industry. For example, those who struggle to borrow, they're able to demonstrate, for example, that they do have a good track record paying their rent, then that could be a piece of data, a source of data, that could put them in good stead and support something that they want to achieve, whether it's credit or buying their own house. Secondly, I think it can help us accelerate interoperability, and it's a linked topic. So that rental data, as we've said, could be used to help with borrowing, but also if you look at the different platforms that exist across businesses, across merchants, across our lives, many of them are still not as connected as they could be. So I think bringing those things together, open standards allow us to do that. The blueprint is there, so I hope it can be achieved. Thirdly, I'd say is to reduce some of the friction that we face. UAE is unique because it's one of the countries where banks and financial companies onboard something like 190 nationalities as BAU, right? Every single day we are dealing with all the different types of identity requirements, passports, paperwork, and so on and so forth. But what's really helped has been the digitization of identity. So using UAE Pass, using your Emirates facial recognition, for example. And if you've been on any of those journeys, you realize, wow, this is super easy, this is super smooth. Why can't it be like this everywhere? And if you've come from another country where you still have to rock up with a passport, or upload a passport to a portal and wait a few days for a response, you'll know how much more seamless this can be. So I think in terms of some of the areas of collaboration, I think there is no open finance in a vacuum, right? You cannot do sort of open finance on your own with yourself. It needs to be with others. And I think knowing when to partner, knowing when, for example, a niche lender or a specialist lender may be more fitted to the particular client need and developing a relationship there. Or, for example, leveraging, let's say, local partners for last mile of payments delivery. There are a number of use cases where even the largest banks won't have coverage in every sector, in every area. And so actually knowing when to partner, being open, having the partnering mindset, I think is key for this industry. I'll probably let Vlad add some things as well from his point of view.
I'm pretty sure, Vlad, you'll have a lot to compliment and build on that, especially given your experience in different regions, but also in different parts of value chain of the open finance. So, what's your view on that?
Thank you, Marcin. So, if you look on the open finance, and especially as I coming from the European region where I actually managed to touch both parts of the ecosystem, I've been on the creation of the tech venture utilizing the open finance, and I've been also part of the bank creating open finance. If you think about these couple of things, one of the most important things to think about is really users. Because at the end of the day, success of open finance doesn't lay in the APIs, which we're all going to deploy, and I'm sure we're going to make them successful. It's not really the regulation which push you to go and approach open finance, but it's actually iterating user journeys and making sure that these user journeys stick So users want to go onto these journeys again and again. And there were a lot of hypotheses across UK, Europe, other markets which are originally put on plate, but most of them actually failed. And they failed because everyone was running into open finance and open banking with the mind that we're just gonna deploy this new thing of the technology which is kind of given by the regulator, not really thinking how the real use of that would be. If you look just, for example, account information service, original intention was to bring it to the business banking customers so they can easily see all their account information and then transition it into the more actual transactability, but then everyone learned that it's not helping. The biggest use case today which exists in many open banking markets which relates to account information service is actually credit scoring, which allows to pull customer information and give seamless decision on the credit. And it took a time for the market to adopt. So if I bring this perspective now to UAE and try to frame the way forward. So I think the really success is about three things for all of us to make it right. One, I think banks need to go on this journey, not thinking just only banks, but they need to see themselves as an infrastructure creator. So they need to see how they enable infrastructure and collaboration. Fintechs, they need to step in this journey with the mind that we are not taking the universe from the banks, but we are actually ready to collaborate, creating new services. And third, I think most important, regulators in this case need to act less of the regulatory body, but the one who brings all this ecosystem together. And if we manage all these three things work together, it will create a great path for the open finance in the market.
I would love to hear more from your side, Pramod, building on what Vlad has just said. Vlad on the example of regulator and the model of collaboration. I think you've done something very successful with that regard in India as a system.
I guess in the context of how an evolution of an open finance of a process happens in the market, there has to be some sort of a feedback mechanism around what comes to adoption. And that feedback mechanism involves, I guess, three core participants. One would be the second would be the tech company. And the third, the banking and the financial community. Now, in the context of each of these markets, ultimately open finance has a core purpose to solve. The core purpose is around how do you enable a secure penetration of financial services into all the business segments in a given market. Now, in the context of UAE, I'm not sure whether underserved be a problem, but yes, underbanking and underserved may not a real problem that open banking may solve. But what it may try and do is to ensure that there is convenience and speed of services that banks want to offer. Now, what kind of a template should a financial institution or a TPP, third-party provider, provide to the customer segments they serve? That feedback loop in some ways in the context of India has been done through a representative body comprising regulatory participants, the banking and the technology participants who look at all the evolving solutions that are happening. What are the friction points that exist in the context of adoption of, and that feedback is then taken by the regulators in this manner, and they implement changes and improve infrastructure in the framework. Now that feedback mechanism, I guess if there is a formality to the process, UAE and that body can be established for a regulation and the industry participation to happen, I think that it will definitely help improve the adoption and the kind of use cases that will emerge out of the market. A good example for a UAE kind of a market could be a single click account opening. At the end of the day, consumers today still deal with paper and there are certain digital models and digital banks that are emerging, but for traditional banks and the rest of the banking ecosystem, is there a possibility where through the click of a button, you could have the banking information, the KYC related information, and other elements that exist in the context of what I would call the ability, stability, contactability, identity, and intention. You know, the things that bother a financial institution when it comes to loan origination, customer origination. If those elements can be sorted out through a framework like this, I think it would be truly a transformation. And in that context, is there the possibility of a sort of a collaborative body that presents its position to the regulator? I think would be truly useful.
Thank you for that, Pramod. That reminds me of some very early years of the PSD2 and open finance regulation days in Europe. So I wonder, Vlad, if you have similar experiences, in particular how the regulator, how the whole group of the actors of the ecosystem can expedite this process, because we all agree this is a process that takes time. So what is your learning from the European markets?
Yeah, in my view, it comes a lot with the collaboration, because we need to put players together. It's not enough of just having a very nice and smooth framework. And then this collaboration is actually crucial to push the real use cases, bringing really parties together, looking for the new business model, solving the problem, which is, I think, on top of everyone's mind, where is the income in all this equation, and how actually both players, the ones who are stepping in open banking and those who've been in the banking for a long while, can coexist and create real value for customers. I'm coming back to the same thing, because I'm a strong believer that adoption comes when there is an iterative process, when the customer comes in and they want to continue engage in these journeys, and then this engagement exists, suddenly we see the adoption. And it comes not because of API, not because of integration, it comes because of the right framework and right approach how we bring players together.
So maybe before we go to the next question, anything you would like to build on top of that, how to make this ecosystem successful, Abdulla, from your...
I think that summed it up nicely. We shouldn't be creating tech for tech's sake. We shouldn't be creating new toys without real-world purpose. But that said, I think if you look at underserved segments, if you look at whether it's gig workers, whether it's those with thin credit file, if you look at those who struggle to meet their financial needs, those who maybe financial system is less geared towards serving, I think there's a lot of untapped potential. And maybe one anecdote from Brazil's implementation of open finance was customers generally have inertia. They generally are reluctant to share their data unless they have to. There's very much a what's in it for me mentality. So the surveys that they ran showed that customers generally have this kind of reluctance, but the moment they realize there's something in it for them, they're a lot more willing. And so if there is if you ask them, would you share your data? They'll probably say, no thank you, I'm fine. But if you said to them, would you like to share your data, and you might have a higher credit limit, and they're much more likely to say, why not? Let me try. So I think, sticking, like you said, to real problems, and that collaboration between different parts of the market, regulator, financial industry, fintechs and tech companies, hopefully can be a force for good.
Thank you. Maybe let's move to the next question. Maybe let's start with you, Vivien. So, financial inclusion, it's not an easy problem to solve in the world of everything has to have a solid business case. There is this paradigm of commercialization of all the innovative stuff that we're bringing to the board. So, how do you tackle this? How to make sure that the solutions, the open finance solutions, are actually inclusive?
Okay. I think because I'm probably the only one from the crypto side. So for us, when crypto industry, how we merge or how we become part of the financial inclusion, this kind of topic, we always think about like how blockchain technology can be more inclusive. So one thing I agree with the three of other guest speakers is that one thing we need to focus is how we process the data. Like in crypto industry or in blockchain, under blockchain technology, the data is very transparent. But the problem is that how we process the data so that everyone can use them, right? Your transaction data, your trading data, all those data are behaviors and activities. Whether we can build a kind of like standard or like unified way to interpret those data and use these data, I think that's the key for the open finance inclusion. Is that this is one thing, and second thing is where is the mass adoption use case? Like recently, one thing we see the mass adoption use case is PayFi. Is that like cross-border payments, right? Using different kinds of technology, maybe blockchain technology is one of them. But still, we depend on the quite, I think, currently fragmented compliance framework, regulatory framework. That's the key challenges for not only blockchain industry, but I think it's for the entire payment industry. So how we tackle those kind of problem, and from BingX perspective or from crypto industry or blockchain industry perspective, that we provide the tools, the technology that come to use the blockchain technology because everything is transparent here, but still depends on whether people from traditional finance, whether it's banks, security houses, or like companies, they are willing to have their data on chain. It could be permissionless or permission technology. You have different kinds of solutions, but whether people at the first hand, they are willing to share their data, no matter it's from the retail perspective or institutional perspective, I think that's key challenges. And from us, from like BingX perspective, we have the technology here always ready for our counterparties or our partners to integrate with.
Thank you. Pramod, you probably step ahead of this market, so I'm curious if you have seen this work in practice.
See, I have a perspective that in some ways the tech access is not the same as tech literacy. So just because someone has a smartphone does not mean that they know how to use that in the context of managing their transactions. So at some level, it is just not about the jigs and fixtures of the technology stack that drives an open finance inclusive architecture. There is also an important element that I guess institutions have to consider, which is the user interface that exists in the context of the ability to connect with the ecosystem for drawing out information. At the end of the day, can you support vernacular models? For someone who's maybe English illiterate, do they have a template by which they can interface with the ecosystem for enabling the transactions? Can you do voice-based transactions? Now, at some level, if the industry starts looking at some of these opportunities around what would be valuable to the different customer segments that the institutions are serving, and tuning the user interfaces to deal with that, I guess that would be one important element that would drive adoption in the context of the framework that we are looking at. And it is in that basis, we have our counter there in the arena of the Perfios system. You can actually see how easy it is in the context of interoperability and transfer of information. Now, is that the template that the institutions today are having when it comes to engaging with customers? I mean, not if you are in a position to start focusing on what the customer segments want, I think it is something that we can build as a capability as we go along. So I would actually use the whole idea of user interface for engaging with open finance as a core point that would drive adoption.
Right. Looking at the time, I think we have about 8 minutes to go. So maybe let me fast forward to the last question, which is, I believe, also the most exciting one to re-answer. So, given the stage that the region's open finance advancement is, what would be your advice based on some lessons that you learned in other markets? What are the pitfalls to avoid? And maybe this time I would start with you, Vlad.
I think if you look on the lessons learned, the most important thing is one, we need to think of infrastructure, but yes, we need to start thinking about the customers. Let's learn from the things which we've seen in other parts of the market where it took several iterations to get real open finance and open banking solution out. In order for us to fast forward this, we just need to take a learning. We need to start creating more TPPs in this market so they can actually start acting on infrastructure which is being created by central bank and by all the banks. We need to start bringing this ecosystem together, and we need to start creating stimulus for the counterparties to get and be engaged. We need to make sure that, coming back to this inclusion point, that the users are ready to provide the data consent, because even the data element comes after open finance and open banking, open data. Then we today need to explain that giving this consent and having the right user cases available on the market will boost the adoption. And at the end of the day, users don't want to think of finance. They want to go and do the payments in the apps which not have any relations to the banking. They want to walk in the store and get out of the cars without need for the detailed credit scoring and information submission. They want to go on the portal, find a desired home, and make a purchase. And to make this vision true, we need to start connecting ecosystem as quickly as possible. So that will be, I think, my main point.
Abdulla?
I think, to be honest, we've covered a lot of the kind of key lessons. You had asked this question earlier, which was, where do we see open finance in 5 years? If we fast forward 5 years, and maybe if I extend the timeline to say 10 years, and I dream a little bit, I can see my agent, my AI agent, connected to all of my financial products, my cars, my accounts, my wealth, however much that may be, and then also enabled to transact for me, to pay for me, cross-border, do my shopping, plan for my holiday, pay for my flights. But my bank is still there. My bank is the one that keeps control. My bank is the one that keeps telling me if I need to know something. And then that data is not being sold. I'm not a product of a big tech company. And my data is not being used to drive someone else's business model. But I have full control of it. And if we can reach anything like that, then I think we've been very successful.
Thank you. Vivien, what would be your advice?
I think it's always come back to the primary principle, is that when we develop a technology or product or concept, whether it solves the real problem and it's add value to everyday's life, that's a key thing that we need to think about. Because so many times we have new technologies, we have new user case, we give it so many meanings, but in the end we find, it's just for payment, or it's just for convenience. So when we're talking about finance or financial industry, the two key things is, one is security, safety. The other thing is convenience, and of course the convenience is under a regulatory framework. So back to the principle, then we start to think about what our user really needs. That's, I really suggest, for startups, we are also startups, this really should be our top priority when we think about what we want to do and what we should do.
Fantastic, Pramod, because you phrased this, and I really like your phrasing that this is the journey. It will take 3 years, maybe 5 years. So what this 3 to 5 years should look like?
So I would perhaps leave everyone with 4 or 5 metrics. Using or adopting open finance, can it reduce my cost of acquisition? The experience in a market like India is for most financial institutions, your cost of acquisition could come down by as much as 60%. So that would be one, because it is frictionless, seamless information flow leading to faster customer onboarding, cheaper, faster and better. So one is reduction in customer acquisition costs. The second is improvement in the context of lending, improvement in NPAs, because you start building early warning systems that you can use to look at customer behavior before it goes bad, because you have access to the financial information of the customer. So can the NPAs of financial institutions come down by a significant factor, maybe 20 to 30%? That's a reality. The third, in some ways, can I start using open finance to engage with customers on literally every aspect of my customer engagement? Product nudges, pricing offers, situational offers. If you're in the middle of a mall and I get you a credit card offer on a real-time basis because I have access to your financial information that indicates that you're a good customer. You have an opportunity of a completely new way of how you engage with the customer, which a traditional banking system would not allow you to do. I think these would be the 3 big benefits. And for me, I guess the last word would be that, it's always easy to overestimate what we would want to achieve out of an open finance template in maybe 3 to 6 months. But it's also equally possible to underestimate the transformational power of what open finance can do over a 3 to 5 year time frame. And that is what we actually see in a market like India today. It's completely transformed. An institution that was doing 100 loans a month is today able to scale to 100,000 loans a month because the friction has been eliminated from the system. So I'm very, very hopeful that in the context of UAE, we are on the cusp of seeing something very, very transformational for the banks. And as a technology provider, we are hopeful that we will be an integral part of that contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if I may just take a stab at summarizing what was said in the last couple of minutes, I think all that matters, take the long-term perspective, make it collaborative, so one voice for the industry. I think we all agree this is value creation exercise, not really a quick monetization exercise. And last but not least, it's an open finance class, so it's not really about finance, it's about identity, it's about different asset classes, it's about using different technologies. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give it up to the speakers.